What's up, everybody? Thank you very much for clicking on the video for Keenan Meadows Champions Corner. This is a new show that we're trying to do, and with every new show that we do here at TCGU, of course, there is a slew of issues. So with our inaugural recording, our inaugural video, we, had my audio and my video a little desynced. So if that bothers you, I'm sorry. We're going to be able to fix it for the next time that we go through this. But the more important thing is we lost the first 5 minutes of audio on Keenan's end. I have gone ahead and cut off all of my audio, but I do want to cover what it is that we talked about right there at the beginning. I only got 2 questions in, but I want to cover up what we did. We start off with our introduction of what the point of this is, and the point of these Champions Corners is that we want to historically catalog the champions in our game, UniVersus, UFS, and eventually as many card games as we can. History is really, really important, and I got the inspiration of this idea from Ryan Pham, who wanted to do something along this sorts, but doesn't have the time or necessarily the resources, and so I'm trying to do something that will make him proud. And then in addition to that, I asked Keenan, who are you? What have you done? And he started going into his long catalog, which I have a list of all of his achievements scrolling at the bottom. And he's talking about how he's been competing since set 1, and he's not set 1 necessarily, but like he's been playing for such a crazy long time, and the community that he's been a part of, and the fact that he's been a community leader, and he's a 2011 world champion, a bunch of really awesome stuff. And then he started going into what 2011 world looked like, and then about halfway through I noticed, hey, I'm not recording Keenan's audio, so I flipped that switch on, and then you get to see the rest of it from here. So once again, my apologies. The next time that we do this is going to be a little bit cleaner. It's going to be a little bit better, and it's going to be more of the full product that we want to bring. So thank you once again for your support, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Kazuya's support that lets you interact with character cards and add them to your hand, like the new Mad Pro card and the Suzaku card now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was to commit, discard a card, pick up a character. And then there was another Jin card that was discard a character, this attack is +4 damage. Okay. So it worked on a defensive and offensive level. It also played one of the only breaker cards in the game at that point, which was called Leg Slash. It was the best breaker card in the game. 4 diff, 3 check, low, 3 speed, 5 damage, no abilities except for Breaker 2.
Oh, Breaker 2,
One of the best breaker cards in the game at that point. In fact, that's pretty much like the reason. That was the second best attack in my deck after harnessing.
You are talking like a Model T car.
Yes,
in comparison to what?
Exactly.
Wow,
it was very much so a Model T car. And I think, the deck played 4 Evokes main deck, 8 characters. So we're talking like 12 actions, quote unquote.
Yeah.
19 attacks. One of them, they were all lows, and they comboed into Rolling Revenge, which was combo low. E, your opponent discards X cards at random, where X is the number of low attacks in your card pool.
That's a bunch.
So whenever you resolved that card, your opponent's hand was gone, unless they had 1 card left, and then the Harnessing Chaos you played first would get rid of that. And so you basically made an unblockable kill string, and then Ava's entire job was just boost damage and then draw a card at the beginning of my opponent's ready step. So I could just I was an essential 8-hander on defense with a bunch of really good defensive pieces, and then I could discard the character cards to turn them into offense with the I can't remember the name of the card, Merciless something, but you discard a card +4 damage. It also committed for 2 more, and then Ava could blow it up for 3. So it was like an essential +9 damage, essentially +9 damage on 1 card.
And with with Breaker 2 being the best breaker or defensive pieces we have, +11 seems like a ton, right?
It was
that's like missile launcher stats.
Yeah, and it was a lot in a deck that could make things essentially unblockable, just because your opponent only had so many cards in their hand, and card draw wasn't as ridiculous. We didn't have a Gil back in the day.
Oh, for sure.
They weren't ever thinking that they were going to reprint like old promo Rock Howard, which is basically just Gil, but worse, honestly. So yeah.
I've heard a lot of, like, I was watching one of Scott Sunman's meme casts, and he was talking about the fact that, like, he wanted to bring back he played an attack in Rock Howard that's basically the worst version of Queen of Hearts, and
Shadow Banishment, probably?
Yes, I believe that was it. Yeah. I don't know the old ones. World of Endines, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's really interesting to hear about these crazy busted legacy cards, and then
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah, we have one of those. Only it has a better block.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I think so much of Legacy and what's going to be Jasco Extended can just be like there are plenty of players who can just rest on their laurels by taking their standard deck and playing it in those formats and doing totally fine because the power level of Bebop is unlike anything that Legacy ever saw. And while Legacy had a bunch of problematic foundations, like there's enough offense in the game now that I think you could break through that to an extent. Like some of the stuff should still be banned that got banned in Legacy because it was horrible, but like there's a lot of stuff in Standard that's nutty. So, and it's good nutty. I don't think it's bad nutty yet.
So like, what can you add when it comes to like the 2011 meta Standard versus Legacy? What did that look like? As somebody who's never played in a Legacy event, I hear that word,
Yeah.
and there's 90% of UFS Ultra for all my new kids. UFSUltra.com. It's an amazing website. You should definitely check it out. What does that look like?
So
In
are we talking?
comparison?
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that I've got this right. Are we talking like what the Legacy format looked like in 2011,
So
or with
I'm not necessarily doing
talking
that.
about the 2011 meta?
You are the
Because I won both of those tournaments.
You're the world champ. You are the in both Standard and Legacy in 2011.
Right.
What's
Yeah.
the difference? How did you get there? So like we figured out, like we learned with Eva. Did you just do the same thing and just slap Eva on top of your?
God, no. I
No?
played Dulcim. He's an 8-hand size character. I actually have a copy of him here.
Whoa! Look at that wall.
Fuck. Dropping shit over here. Okay, here we go. So Dulcim is a character. He was an 8-hand size, 20 life character
Whoa.
that said F destroy any number of your ready foundations. Your opponent discards X plus 1 cards. X equals the number of foundations destroyed once per turn.
Dip your whole hand. See ya.
Yeah. So, and then R commit 1 foundation. After your opponent plays an ability printed on their character, they discard a card. So if they weren't already out of cards, they discard one. Actually, that came in handy against Garrett in top 4 because he was playing Nakaruru, which commits my character, but he left himself with 2 cards in hand. So I ditched one of them out before he could tap it, and then just like played enough attacks to kill him.
That
Yeah, so the deck was designed to make it so that my opponent couldn't interact with a kill shot.
Mm-hmm.
So it played a card. It was a 6 damage multiple 2. It played a foundation that just commits to get you 2 momentum. It also took a card out of your opponent's hand if they had any left.
Mm-hmm.
And then it played a card that said destroy or commit 1 foundation. This attack is damage equal to the number of foundations you destroyed this turn.
And with him,
So-
you can destroy any of them, right?
You could destroy as many as you want.
Yeah.
So your damage ceiling is limitless on almost turn 2. And then the other card that was really key in that deck was called Lesser of Many Evils, which was a 2/5 form destroy. No responses can be played for the rest of the turn.
Yeah, that's
So you nuke that one. They can't respond. You get rid of their hand. They don't do anything. You play an 18 damage card on base, and
Yeah.
then you just give it any more damage you want to.
you need to. Yeah.
Yeah, I killed Matt Coles on turn 2, maybe 3. Yeah, I time walked him turn 1. I got rid of all of his foundations because there were other cards that let you just blow up your opponent's foundations as they were playing them. And then turn 3, I think I killed him. There was also a card back in the day called Seal of Cessation, which is an asset 3 check, 3 def,
Okay.
destroy, cancel any ability.
Just whatever you want.
Yeah, any effect. I think it even canceled characters. Like it was absolutely insane.
Wow,
So
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's
I
pretty
mean, my old strategy tended to just revolve around like stop your opponent from being able to do anything and kill them. And I played that way for a long time, but like the game hasn't always been that nice. It hasn't always been that easy to calculate a kill, and it hasn't been always that easy to live long enough to do that. But as an 8-hand size 20 life character, it's easy to do that. As a essential 8-hand size 18 life character with like a bunch of speed resets and blocks and good blocks and stuff, it was fine to do that. So yeah.
So that kind of brings me to now, right? It kind of brings me to 2018. You came out Bebop swinging. You found some success in your
that character was insane. That deck was insane at the time.
Yeah. Of Coffee Samba's #1 fan. Do you feel like it had a similar feel as your 2 decks with commit everything out? They can't interact with that, because that's what I'm hearing. With
And so
Ava, you were like, hey, you don't have a hand to block, you don't interact. With Dulcim, you don't have a hand to interact. With Matt Perot,
with
you don't
Pro,
have a
you don't
staging
have a
area.
staging area to interact with. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think there was a portion of that was the same. Big differences. I was pretty training wheels in standard for a really long time, so this was like the first time I was venturing outside of three checks. I
Okay.
just went straight to ones because twos were never that good anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
And so
Rip the Band-Aid.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, yeah, and I mean, it was easy. It's easy when you build your entire deck knowing you're going to check a one. Like I,
Yeah.
I, I, I played that deck one zero diff, one diff. Like I was going to guarantee two foundations on one no matter what. But like if you just toss one checks into a deck that has a bunch of three diff foundations and two diff foundations and not a lot of spam, you're going to lose. Like
Yeah, for sure.
it was one of those things where it's like it was a calculated risk, but it was a good risk to take
Yeah.
because it was such a just like I'm going to play. I need three cards. I need a Coffee Samba, an Allurophobia, and a Punch, or a Judy,
Yeah,
and we're off to the
for sure.
good. Or discard the right cards at the top of my deck, you're dead. So yeah, I think that deck really did keep with the theme. The problem was like as more good negation and as more good cancellation came out, it just felt like one of those things where it's like when you know you're facing down a dark side of karma, especially in fire, which doesn't have a lot of targeted foundation uh, answers. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, the best ones are Commander of Outworld's armies, which makes you take damage as a seven-hander without blocking, which is terrible, and
Right.
Coxiel, which is like a one of.
Yeah.
It's a little difficult, and maybe that deck comes back if there are more answers are printed. But at the moment, it just didn't feel like there was a ton of stuff that I could do with
And
it.
there's a ton of stuff that says play ball committed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They figured out that like, oh no, we printed Coffee Samba. We gifting somebody two cards is not a real hindrance.
yeah. It
It's
can be if they draw a revoke, but it's a big
yeah.
if.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, but
So
mhm.
what do you think gave you your bebop success? Was it just going out and just trying this brand new thing you've never tried before,
Yeah, it
or
was. So I drafted Vicious in my original draft and ripped Coffee Samba as the first card. I was like, you know what, screw it. I don't play one checks that often. Let's throw it in there. And
yeah,
the second that I chucked it in the deck and like I won that pre-release draft with that card, and I was like, all right, this card is nutty. Let's see what else we can do with it. And then I mean, like the cards were all in the set.
yeah,
The entire offense was Bebop except for
yeah,
Tech Sphere because Tech Sphere is Tech Sphere. So
right.
like, and at that point it was nuts because you removed your hand and just went crazy. But
You had the power of Eva.
yeah,
She was back.
exactly. She
Text
got to
sphere.
be in my deck no matter what, which is really cool.
Yeah.
If only that version of that character was good. But I digress. Yeah, I think a
James
lot of
Stevens is rolling over in his grave.
I played her in tournament too. But yeah, she was that deck was so Bebop oriented. It wouldn't have existed without Bebop, and it could only exist in a very Bebop centric meta. Because the next set that came out was it MK?
Yeah, it was MK.
It was MK, and I think there were some
Mm-hmm.
answers printed in that, and then like it just
Sense of morals.
yeah, and then yeah, Sense of Morals was terrible for
Yeah.
my deck, and then it just
Yeah.
kept snowballing and snowballing and snowballing, and it was just one of those things where it's like I don't think that I can securely play this now.
Yeah.
Now there is a version of it that I'd be interested in trying that just goes with the four Toguro brothers and deals with the answers that the opponents plays on board because the entire attack base. So the original deck was four revokes, but it was off of fire, and every deck had evil. The
Yeah.
next deck was three bangs, and every single attack had water. And
Okay.
that was one that I played at Nationals last year. And then there's another version of it where you go back to the evil build, but you play four revokes, and that lets you get around Sense of Morals, which also lets you get around. I mean, like Dark Side of Karma is huge.
Yeah.
Just everything that can screw your kill over. It's just the problem. It becomes an issue of are there too many answers for this deck? Because the problem with the deck fundamentally is it's a
Yeah.
one shot, and
Oh, for sure.
if you flub your shot, you're done
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
entirely. So like
Deliverance laughs at you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Deliverance is well. I mean, and there are counters, right? Like Overly
Sure.
Dramatic and Gora's Victory Pose were two of the biggest cards in the deck.
Yeah.
So like,
For sure.
but I never had a good answer for Cool and Focused ever. There is none that I
No.
can find.
No.
Unless you can add enough to block difficulty to make it failable, you can't really answer it. So, and maybe there is something out there that I missed or I haven't looked at in a minute, but Tam, you are racking your brain right now, man. What you got?
We have to play a combo attack, and then when we combo, we yin and yang and put two things in the card pool.
Okay. I could see that.
That's
But
the
that's the thing.
worst answer I
Then
could come up
then
with.
then then you've put yin and yang in your deck with a combo attack, and you've lost your Toguro brothers, so you still lose to blah blah blah. So
Hey,
like
good call.
exactly, that's the thing. Like the deck was really really good when there were much fewer answers to it, and then the deck won a bunch of shit, and now it's not as good anymore because there are so many answers to it. Because you got to prepare for that stuff. You can't let that rampant in standard for forever, or something's going to get banned, and nobody likes that. So
So, onto a little bit of community-based stuff, right?
yeah,
So, as a new player coming up, I had the luxury, the blessing of being in the Omaha community, which is like one of the biggest, best, like 2018,
it's
2019
the mecca
has
of UFS currently,
for
100%.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not how it always has been.
Nope.
The Atlanta boys, the Atlanta crew were messing people up left and right. Do you equate any of your success to the play group, or do you think
Oh,
it's just
100%. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Team Lion Stance, obviously. Like, I mean, they've won so many teams championships at this point in one iteration or another.
who's on the
Um,
team?
so that's Drew Maffei, who hasn't come to a UFS tournament in years, and if he ever shows up again, y'all better be ready. Ben Shoemaker, the UFS's resident drunken rowdy person, and then Dave Wagner, fabulous hair and even better UFS.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those guys are absolutely insane. Matt Turner, my teammate for a really, really long time, he's getting back into the game. He
Hell
stepped
yeah, I'm
out for a
so hype.
while. His Astroth deck is nutty,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be surprised if that character gets looked at after a little bit. Because my god, that deck is hard to kill.
Are we thinking the possible team happening at Worlds
So
or?
we've already got our worlds team, and I'm really, really sad that we settled on it a little bit early. But I'm also really excited for it. Our worlds team is me, Ashley, Tim Keefe. We're Team
Whoa.
World Champ Shuffle.
Whoa.
And I
Whoa.
get to borrow Tim's 2017 belt, which we're going to put electrical tape over the top of the 7 so it looks like an 11.
Looking like 11. Let's go. Let's go. Big
So
shout outs
that,
to them. I definitely want to have them on the show as well
oh
at
yeah, for
some point.
sure.
Yeah.
You got to get, yeah, you got to get both of them on this
Yeah.
show. But I really like with this Astroth deck, like I'm really like, man, Tim better bring something really cool to the team because I'm gonna be really upset if we get bopped because Piglet is going into the lab and he's just digging and finding
Grinding.
stuff. Um,
I'm happy. That makes
yeah,
me like
the key
there's
the key to
fire
his
inside.
the key to his deck was in your Astroth poll as well. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see if it wins the Astroth poll. But I'm not gonna
Cool.
no spoilers yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously, like Piglet and I, like I've lost so many games to Piglet. I've played so many games against throw decks. It's one of those things where it's like that man has beat me into the ground with his gimmick over and over and over again. And like if you don't know anything about Piglet, he likes unblockables and throws. Like he doesn't want to have to worry about throwing an attack out that deals no damage. He's going to try to kill you, and you're going to be on a clock to beat him before he just brings you into the ground. And so, like, learning to play against that constantly on top of all of the ridiculous stuff that Lion Stance brings to the table,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nuts. I also wanted to shout out a local player who hasn't played much. He used to play way back in the day. We actually we were part of the OG group of UFS with Lion Stance, and then he had left the game for a while. But his name is Philip Watson, and he's been back to a couple tournaments recently.
Okay.
He's actually like the only reason that I'm good at card games at all because we
Really?
started playing Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day,
Let's go.
and like that meta, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like that game is super cutthroat when it comes down to it. Like you got to
Yeah.
draw all the right cards at all the right times. And that man's decks were just infinitely better than mine every single time I
Yeah.
play him. And like I'm one of those people who I will do something, I will lose a million times at anything if I really want to be good at it
Mm-hmm.
until I'm good at that thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Right now I'm playing Soul Calibur 6 and I keep going online into ranked matches and I think over the course of the last week I am 17 wins and probably like 70 plus losses. Like it's one of those
Wow.
things where it's like I will continue to throw myself into the grinder until I learn something from it.
That's
And
that's really admirable, especially when it comes to like being a champ, right? Like
yeah, I mean,
it's there's a ton of grinding you got to do. As somebody who does
dude,
content every single day,
yeah.
it is really it. I feel it.
I started playing this game in 2006. I didn't win anything until 2011.
There
Like
you
I
go.
hadn't won a PTC before I won Worlds. Like it was just one of those things where it's like I fought through a lot, and the Lion Sam's players were rough. Like every time you come to a UFS tournament, and they would bring some kind of ridiculous ass legacy combo deck where like this dude was using like this Valdo multiple that let him add a 14 damage card to his momentum, and then using this card called Material Advantage to just play it out its momentum for free and not pass a check on it.
Oh,
And it
gross.
was just, here's 14, deal with it. And I was like, I'm still learning how symbols work. I don't know how chaining happens. Like I remember bringing a deck back in the day that was like all different symbols, and my idea was as long as each card shared a symbol with each other card, like they all worked, and that's not how that
Oh,
worked at
no,
all.
not
Like,
at
but
all.
that's the thing. Like, I was so bad at card games, I just wanted to learn, and I enjoyed the community, and I liked playing them. And so Philip and Matt and all of Lion Stance and everybody who I've gotten to play UFS with since then, like they were all great teachers, and it was one of those things where it's like, I will get my ass beat a million times and come back better for it. And so that's kind of where I ended up.
So to dovetail off of that, where does baby Keenan Meadows start? Like how do you find out about the game? You said you were a
So
Yu-Gi-Oh player. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh
yeah,
player. I played Yu-Gi-Oh all the time. You
so
play
so
Bad
Yu-Gi-Oh is
Dragon
actually
decks and
mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
for sure.
So I mean I played Bad Dragon decks to start, and then you move into the meta because you learn how card games
Of
work, and so you
course.
start playing Monarchs or whatever. And it got to this point in the Monarch meta, like back in 2000, and I think it was back in 2006, maybe 2007, somewhere in there, where the game just got really bad. Like Yu-Gi-Oh was the worst game because it was so stale.
Yeah,
And they would change the ban list up every once in a while. It wouldn't do anything to the metagame. The Monarchs and Chaos Sorcerer were still reigning supreme, and
for sure.
everybody was just not having a good time at tournaments. I was bored, honestly. I was just sick of the game. I was sick of the meta. I didn't like the fact that every single time my opponent would just play a card that makes me discard cards, and I would go down cards and then be top decking for hours and hours and hours on end. Honestly, like, so then I got to demo UFS, and I realized there's a hand size mechanic. And like coming from somebody who was so stunted by so many of the NP parts of Yu-Gi-Oh, where you get your hand controlled and you just lose and you're top decking, to I have this many options a turn, and as
Hmm.
long as I don't fuck it up, I get to have this many options for the rest of the game until I win, is awesome. And so like more so than anything, the mechanics brought me into UFS from Lion's Stance. They were like, hey, you guys aren't having that much fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Come try this. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's give it a shot. And I loved it ever since.
That's really what one of my big selling points when it comes to UFS
Yeah.
is like I tell people the game wants you to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the beginning of your turn, man, I've got one card in my hand. Nah, dog, you got 7 cards in your hand. You need to
Exactly.
figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when you deck yourself out, what happens? You take the top 10 and get rid of them, but the game wants you to play the game. Deck out's just not a thing, you know. If you're getting decked out, somebody's trying to deck you out. Like
Nah.
that's a choice somebody made.
I guess against Christopher Bromley, I did choose to deck him out after like 20 turns at this latest Worlds. But
Right? But you were like, all right, that's the plan. But till then, it was, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get you.
exactly.
Yeah. And the game just like wants you to play the game.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The
It's
mechanics
so
the
good.
mechanics of UFS are better than any game that I've ever played. And that the thing is, like, you can't express that to somebody who's like thinking about it in the ether. Most people are playing this game. Well, a lot of people start playing this game because of the licenses and all that sort of stuff.
For
And
sure. For sure.
it's so infuriating because you're like talking to somebody like, oh, this game's got all these licenses, and they're like, but what about this license? And it's like, is My Hero Academia not enough for you?
Oh,
How
it will
about Yu
be.
Yu Hakusho, Mortal Kombat? Because I remember back in the day when we got Soul Calibur, everybody was like, "Hey, do you guys have Mortal Kombat?" We have Mortal Kombat now. Nobody's asking me for games, so
No.
that was never the hang-up. It's just one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like you got to have that magnetic personality, and you got to be in the right space for it. So
For sure.
yeah,
And a lot of it like rests on Jasco, right? Like
yeah,
advertising and like making sure that the meta itself is healthy, because if you people only have so much budget for whatever, and we
yeah,
are competing with like the big head honchos. Like getting a Magic player to switch over from their game to our game, it is completely and totally going to be based on the text of the cards.
yep,
I don't think, because if a Magic player can jump into a fantasy world and be like, oh man, Chandra's really fucking cute or whatever,
hmm,
it's the card text on Chandra that's making things happen, not flamey hair. Well, maybe actually, hold on, it might be the flamey hair. Let me think about that for a second.
I don't know very much about Magic, but I do know who Chandra is because I've got enough Magic players on my Facebook feed with enough art to
That's
scroll
about
through
where I'm
for
at
days.
too.
Gotcha, gotcha, very good.
So you're saying a lot of success, or I'm sorry, a lot of coming into the game is based on these previous champs. Do you think in order to start a local play group that you have to have somebody with like this real notoriety?
Well, they weren't champs at the time. Like that
Oh
that
no.
was that was back in 2007 when the game first launched, or 2006, 2007, somewhere in
Okay.
there. Because the game first launched back then. Dave had gotten second place at the first ever nationals, I want to say, but like that wasn't what got me into the game. I mean, I think what helped like attract. I mean, you've got one of the nicest and most like teacherly people in Dream of Fate. That man is actually a teacher now. So like, and you have a wild and crazy guy. Like we had our full A team full of people. We had the teacher, we had the wild card Ben Shoemaker, we had the hair. So like, I mean, at the end of the day, like we had a really really good group to start with, and I think like personality is what makes so much of this game's community. Like so
Mm-hmm.
much of this
For
game is
sure. For
based on
sure.
just like you have a good community to hang out with and to be friends with and to play UFS with, and it's really a lot of it is just like about who you've got pushing the game, and if they can get people, they can get people, and they're going to bring people in. In terms of like attracting players to the game, I think the game is amazing, and the problem with the game intrinsically is that the mechanics are really deep, which turns a lot of people off from it, which I get. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to sit down and like spend 12 hours reading a rule book that's this fucking thick.
For sure.
But when it comes to UFS rules, sometimes you gotta,
Yeah.
because stuff changes all the time.
Yeah.
And then like I think the rules and mechanics really are the hindrances to the game, and sometimes the metagame, but I think Jasco does a very, very good job of covering themselves on that.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to people at Nationals about this. It's like Nationals is the, okay, how do we want to balance the meta version of Worlds, which is the healthiest meta of all time. And we've
Oh
done
yeah.
that like several times now. Like last year's Liu Kang and Quan Chi debacle
Mm-hmm.
into the World Championships, which were like some of the most balanced and interesting worlds on the face of the planet,
Yeah.
into
For
this
sure.
year's like Spirit Gun is a legitimate problem. Let's get
Mm-hmm.
rid of Spirit Gun, well,
Yeah.
or severely limit it, and now I think the game is better for that. So I think that's just a cycle that has to happen, because like so much of the problems of this game are found at the national level when people are making broad assertions. As a person who has yelled a lot in this game, because I love this game so much and I enjoy
Yeah.
playing it in a fair context, and I know what fair UFS feels like to me,
Well,
which
you've experienced all of it.
I've
You've
experienced
had
all of it. I've
the whole
experienced the
thing,
worst UFS has had to offer back in the
which is
day. That was Fantasy Flight
okay.
Games before they banned everything. They had a nationals where there were 3 decks, one of which was an infinite loop, and it
Gross.
was a 2 card infinite loop.
Gross.
So the second, and that deck didn't even win. The second one was a deck that was, um, you are not allowed to ready your foundations for the rest of the game, and they're always committed.
Okay.
And in a control game where there was no aggro, because aggro cards weren't good.
Okay.
And the third one, when that deck didn't even win, and the third one was going. So my character wants to go second, because going second, I get to commit and play any attack or foundation from my hand after you played your second card of the turn, and then it played a 7 diff 1 check that was multiple 2, 4 high 8 stun 2.
Okay. Okay. I'm
24
in.
damage.
Yeah.
Here you go. So if it
Here.
gets to go first, I mean, it just goes like build foundation that gets me 2 momentum for free. Build foundation, build foundation, build foundation, build foundation, go. And then turn, as soon as you played your second card on your turn 2, when you've gone second, here's 24, deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have prepare to fight?
No, actually it had an ability on it where the multiples could be discarded.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
as
I
if
oh
that
I
card needed
see.
more things.
Yeah, of course.
And there were cards that did that in the meta that didn't work, because let's put answers on the cards that need to be answered. Answer to
Dark
the answers. It's the
dark
Tiger Scream problem. It's like, all right, you got your dark side down. Fuck you.
yeah. For sure, for sure. So I had on my categories, I had rad stories is something I wanted to talk about, and we've done
Okay.
that.
I
We've
have
crushed it. We've
I
crushed
have
it.
the raddest story that I haven't even gone over yet.
By all means, tell me the rad
Okay.
story.
All right. Well, this is the raddest story that's ever happened to me and maybe any player in UFS at all.
Whoa.
I'm gonna.
As episode 1, I have to agree with you.
Okay,
As
well,
episode, like, this is it. This is the top.
this is the top. But look, I'll tell it to you, Tam, and maybe you've heard this story before because I tell this to a lot of people.
Okay.
So the worlds that I won, I I feel like I need to preface this because it kind of all leads into itself. But when we were going there, we left at like 10 p.m. at night to drive up to Indianapolis back when it was at Gen Con. And
Okay.
it was an 8-hour drive. So I had been awake from like 8 a.m. that morning, and then we were driving through the night. So there was no sleep there. So I got to Worlds on negative like almost a full day's worth of not sleeping, basically. And then the tournament started for Legacy. And I had my Dulcim deck, which I had played one time before.
As you do.
As you do. And I went through the tournament completely sleep drunk the entire time. And then I got the top cuts at like 8 p.m. that night. So
Wow.
I'm sitting at like 36 hours. Yeah? Yeah, 36 hours without sleep.
Wow.
And we're still playing the game.
Of course.
So I'm laying on the table and you're literally yelling nonsense at my opponents. My card, A Matter of Heads and Tails, is a quote from that tournament because my top cuts etiquette was me drawing on my notepad an animal with a big head and a little tail, and an animal with a little head and a big tail. And then I would tell my opponent, this is a matter of heads and tails. And I did that all 3 rounds. And I know Matt Coles, my last opponent, was looking at me like, you are an absolute insane person. And looking back at Ben Shoemaker, like, this is your friend, you idiot. But between the top 4 and top 2, I'd left my backpack at the previous seat in the middle of Gen Con, which was now, I was like tables and tables away.
Yeah.
And so I beat Matt Coles, and I like 2-0'd the man, and I stand up and I'm like, this is amazing. And then I look down and I'm like, where is my backpack? And then I looked over to where it was, and it wasn't there anymore.
Oh, no.
And that had my deck for extended and my deck for standard on
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh, that's not great. And I'm super tired, so I can't be that upset about it because I am just a ball of 5-hour energy fueled caffeine.
Yes.
And so I announced, so extended starts the next day, and I went to I went to, I think, like Piglet, and I was like, man, I don't have my deck for extended, and I don't have my deck for standard. He's like, well, just ask people if they got cards. I'm like, okay, cool. So I went around and I asked, like,
You didn't find your bag?
No. It was gone. It was stolen.
Gone. Oh,
it was gone.
Man.
Gone.
I thought this story was gonna get like way cool, but
it gets better because I knew my standard deck by heart because I'd been working on this thing for like 6 months. So I went around and borrowed every single card for this deck from other players. Like the person who gave me the rest of my sideboard was Omar Chavez, the like 2010 or 9 world or national champion, and he was just like, I put this card in my binder, not even thinking that I would need it, and now you come to me asking for it, and this is the perfect time to hand it to you. I was like, this is great. So I then turned around the next day and won the World Championships on my 21st birthday.
You spirit bombed them, dude. You lifted your hand, and the UFS community gave you their strength.
That's exactly what happened.
So rad.
It was
Holy
nuts.
Cow.
It was the coolest shit that's ever happened. I don't have a cooler story than that. Other than Ashley winning Worlds, which was an amazing story. But like that is the best one. That is the best one that I have. Like that was, oh man, it's
cool.
It's incredible.
That's so cool.
Like after that, how could you ever abandon the game? After that, like no matter how bad the meta gets, I'm always going to play because the people here are incredible. This is the best card game there is, and the community and the how much everybody cares about this game. The people who make the game, the people who make content for the game, you guys, just everybody just loves this game so much. There's so much in it, and there's so much soul in it, and I absolutely adore it.
I was this close to naming this show instead of Champions Corner, Community Corner, just because of how great the community is in our game. But
absolutely,
it's like, man, this game really is the definition. UFS is really the definition of like the homegrown fighting game community scene. Like it really, really is. I love it so much. As somebody who like loves the competitive Street Fighter and Smash Brothers, like every time that I watch one of these like big tournaments, I see everybody hugging and going hype and like all of this. You
Yeah,
don't see
because you got to be hyped when
nobody's
somebody went like.
jumping around and screaming their heads off because somebody hard checked a 6 when they needed to, or somebody slayed the demon in top cuts. Like, there's this monster happening. Like nobody pops off in a Yu-Gi-Oh match. It's always the one person who's like, "Ha, my puzzle beat your puzzle," and then the other person like, "Man, I didn't draw one of my 40 cards."
Exactly, and
game,
I mean that's still gonna happen.
It's hype as hell. Oh,
but you get hyped for it too.
For sure.
Oh man, it's very good. But yeah, so that's the best story I've got, Tim.
Do you have any other shitty garbage stories that you want to share?
Shitty garbage stories? I thought that was pretty uplifting overall.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, we all came together.
Like you hit the best. Do you want anything?
That was the one that I had.
That's the
one.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for new players?
For new players, honestly, I would pick a character that you really like and just dive into it and find players who find the best player at your store and take that character up to them, and they might not have the best advice, but you can play against them and let them beat your ass a bunch.
For sure.
And just whenever that happens, if you need to like take the deck apart, lay it out on the table, ask them for advice, like the game is very new player friendly because people want new players. 100%. And it's sort of it's partially out of desperation, partially out of we just need people who can innovate and come up with better ideas. Because like the thing is, there are so many untapped decks in the game. There's so many untapped strategies because the game is small. And when somebody shows up with a deck that no one's ever heard of and does well with it, it's because there's new ingenuity being introduced to the game.
100%.
You see a new angle. A new player brings a new angle to it, and whether it's that player or somebody who's inspired by something that player did or showed them, like there's always more to explore. So I say like find your character and go for it, and if you need to take some notes or look at some deck lists.
For sure.
Like
for sure.
Recently, I used to be a 7-hand size exclusive player, and I have not played a 7-hander in tournament since I want to say last Worlds. I have played exclusively 6 and 5-handers, and the reason is that I kept looking at Tim Keefe's deck lists, and I kept looking at Matt Turner's deck lists, and I was like, I'm going to learn to play 6-handers if it kills me.
Yeah.
And then I got 4th with Lilith at a PTC, and then I did super well I got 6th at Worlds with Kuwabara, the first time I'd ever brought a 5-hander to a major ever, because I was looking at numbers, and I was just messing around with it, just seeing how it goes. And it was like, there's so much to learn in this game, like, if you're a new player, you should be taking the opportunity to do that, I think.
Let's dive into that 7-hander thing, because that's something I did not know about you, actually, is that you were such a 7-hander connoisseur.
Mm-hmm. I've never not played 7-handers up until this year.
The easiest question, why?
Because 7-handers were always the best characters in the game, especially at the beginning. Legacy UFS, they couldn't print a good 6-hander save their lives. The best 6-hander that they printed was form commit, draw X cards where X equals 10 minus your opponent's hand size.
Okay.
And that character was middling.
Okay.
That was a 10 hand size character as like consistently, and that character was okay.
Yeah.
So it was like, why would I ever bother doing that when you could play Ukyo, which is I'm going to discard your hand and kill you because I drew 13 cards this turn, or God, there was Lien who was my attack is unblockable, you can't cancel that. And it was so easy to just make a one-shot card. There was a character called... The old Gil was an 8-hand size, 20-life character with essentially no effects. And that character... I played the crap out of that character. That character was insane in that meta. Because your symbols could just get by on what they did. It wasn't... Your character has to define what your... Like, your character defines your deck. Now, back then, it was your symbol defines your deck, because the tools that symbols had were just way better than most of the characters that were in the game, and you just wanted to draw more cards so you could see more of that symbol pressure.
Okay.
So that bled into early UFS with Jaska, which was largely the same thing. There were still good 6-handers. I should have died to Phil Birch playing King in top cuts of Worlds the year that I won. He did math bad, and that's his fault. So I still ended up winning, but the finals was still a 7-hander versus a 7-hander.
For sure.
The next year I played Truong, and I got Swiss champ that year, and then we decided to cut this top 16 in like a 50-something person player field, and I lost against the 16th seed, which kind of sucked.
That's very weird.
But it was against another 7-hander, and I'm pretty sure like 7-handers had a monopoly on this game for like 7 years, like 6 or 7 years, and then finally Jess was like, you know what? Let's make 6-handers good, and I like that. I think that's good. I really appreciate that. But 7-handers still will always have that inherent advantage of I get another card, I get another opportunity to kill you, or I get another opportunity to draw my answer, which is super strong. So
and it's all it's all stacking. Like it's not just one extra card a turn. It's once per game. It's every single turn you get that extra
it's
card.
every single turn, and that has value over time.
Sure.
And when the game is played in turns, I mean, you're going to get that value. So like. And not to mention getting a 4 build on 1 consistently versus maybe a 3 build is less than great. So I mean, like 7-handers have always had that extra layer of consistency to them, and so I was always on that board. Like my abilities maybe a little less good, at least in this new Jasco era, but like that 7th card was always stronger. If I'm playing Perot and I play 8 action cards in my deck, or I'm sorry, 11 action cards in my deck, it's better to have that extra card so I can fit it in there as opposed to not.
And that card increases your hand size by 1 because of the way Punch Duty works.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Fishes out of the discard pile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's an asterisk there, but at the end of the day, like drawing 2 punches and then 6-hander is like a lot shittier than drawing 2 punches and a 7-hander.
For sure.
So you get to mitigate that a little bit.
For sure.
But yeah, so like there was never an incentive for me to play a 6-hander because they were never as good. And then I did play one at Worlds 2 years ago. And I got diversified. I went 6-1 and got diversified by 5 strength of schedule points playing Zoe, one of the most broken characters ever printed.
That's right. Like ever?
Yeah, I would say aggressively. Yeah, okay. She was really, really strong. I mean, I think if we're talking like mature level broken, she wasn't there, but she was way up there. And for the meta, she was insane. That deck could pump out 30 damage on turn 2 like it was a joke and not commit anything. That
was the Worlds that like my UFS brain finally clicked on. Like I finally figured out how to play this game. And so
that was post Nightman for you. Correct.
It certainly was. Man, what a time. I'm glad I wasn't making a bunch of content then. That'd be real embarrassing. Let's jump into, I guess, the last big question I have, and then we'll jump into questions for Patreon. Okay. On your list of achievements, you have got to play the first ever game of UFS against the current world champion. So, without stealing her thunder, what is it like to be in a relationship? Behind you, we have all of your guys' cards. You've got, I'm assuming, both your playmats. I recognize her. I don't recognize yours.
That is my playmat for sure.
Perfect. The belt up top. What is it like having the first champion household? Like
not the first champion household. The first champion, the first relationship champion household.
Power
the first
couple?
Champion household is gonna be UFS house. But yes, we're the first UFS power couple. Well, actually, technically, I think Sean and Christine won their asset together.
I did not know that. I did not know that Christine had an asset.
Yeah. It was a Canadian national championship that they won, and they both got on cardboard. So that is still a dream. But it is very good.
You got Tim Keefe this year. It's happening.
Yeah, we got Tim Keefe this year.
You guys are bringing the big guns.
I'm really excited. I'm so excited for that team. We were talking about that. I was just like, oh my god, this is gonna be the best. But yeah, it's honestly great. I have somebody to test UFS against. It is a really good player who only likes to play good characters. Like she was like, you know what? I kind of want to try to play a character with enhances. With enhances, I'm gonna try Zhenghua. And like, yes, let's play Zhenghua games. Man, I need to play against that.
God, I wish I lived in a house with somebody who wanted to play UFS seriously. That'd be really nice.
Right, but
Jane Stevens would give me the biggest bird.
Get him. He was playing Takeda combos. I remember that.
He was,
But yeah, no, like it's so great. It's so great to have somebody who really does like care and enjoy the game. And she's told this story in another interview. The way that I got her into the game was playing some strip UFS. So that like, if you need some encouragement, that worked
Gonna
out.
write.
Tam's taking notes.
No, that's very, very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. So and she was just like, because we meet like Dave or Piglet or whoever would come over and we'd just be talking about UFS, and she'd be like, I don't really know what's going on. So Keenan, just teach me this game on the most cursory aspect, and I don't want to learn that much about it. I just want to know enough to understand what you guys are talking about. And so we played the game, and she's like, okay, that wasn't terrible. And then I was like, well, what about a strip UFS game? And she was like, okay, I'm interested. And that snowballed, and then suddenly she's the world champion of the
Hell
game.
yeah.
And it was just like, oh, damn, okay, awesome, let's go. So yeah, it's very cool for sure. It's one of those like, I she's I've introduced her in multiple occasions as like one of the smartest people that I know, and it was before she won. Like,
Yeah.
I knew that before she won,
For
and
sure.
now that she won, and I'm like, oh, that just vindicates me entirely.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, she's a freaking genius, and she just like, she finds things that she wants to play, and she just does really well with them. And my favorite part about her deck, like just the story of it, was she was super super not feeling it one day just to go to a tournament and just to play a game of UFS. Like, we had a tournament set up. She was like, I don't want to do this. I just want to sit and relax. But I built this Raptor deck on Ultra, and it's like 112 cards, and I don't know what to do with it. I was like, you know what? Okay, let me see your list. And I took her entire Raptor list, her 112 card deck, and sleeved the fucker and put it in her hands and said, all right, let's see how you do. And she got second place at that tournament and had a blast. And then all of a sudden, she's like, and now I know exactly how to trim this thing down.
Yeah.
Because I know all the cards that didn't do me any good and all the cards that did me a ton of good.
Huh.
And it was just like, okay,
Rad.
strategy achieved. Let's figure this out. And then Soul Calibur dropped it, and I was like, put Ninja Outcast in your deck, and she's like, why do I need this card? And I was like, do it. And she was like, okay. And then all of a sudden, she's the world champion the next second.
Hell
like,
yeah.
she built the entire. She like, I put the thing together for her after she had built it. She figured out what she didn't like. She put it together. She threw a Ninja Outcast. And then she's off to the races.
That's
so
perfect.
like, yeah, it's great because like, I think so much good UFS and UFS decks are not built by one person.
Oh, of
I think
course not.
I think there are so many extra strategies that you get from another ear. It's so helpful to have her in the house for me to bounce my ideas off of, because like, when I'm like, man, this deck isn't working, or I feel like there's some problems with it, she's just like, why are you playing this stupid piece of crap card that, like, this stupid foundation with no block on it that you don't need right now? It's like, oh, that's really smart.
Because
I
it's
should
cool,
be thinking about
Ashley,
that.
because it's
right,
cool.
exactly. But like, that's the thing. Like, I think there's a certain level at which we ground each other in, like, this is, if you want to be competitive, this is probably the direction you want to go. And so it's just like, it's great having somebody to talk shop with in terms of that.
That's really
and
rad.
all the other great things that come with a relationship. But like, that's definitely like pretty freaking incredible, honestly.
So let's go ahead and get to the quote unquote last section of this podcast.
Okay.
I sent out today before the podcast jumped on. Nobody knows that I was doing this. This is just a fun little secret. I did about 10 minutes before we jumped on. Hey, everybody, I'm going to have Keenan Meadows on a Champions Corner. If you're on Discord right now, you can ask him a question. And so I've got a big, long list of questions that people want to hear your answers. If you want to jump on our Discord, it is $1 a month out on patreon.com/TCG University. We've got all sorts of channels out there for a bunch of different card games. And the next time I do a Champions Corner, you get to ask your questions to the next champ. So I've got Yomatsu Boyo. Do you know who that is?
Okay. No idea.
That is Travis TNT Tangeman from the podcast. He was very first to answer,
Very cool.
and he said, how does he feel about the match he had against me in Omaha, and thank him for shouting me out on his YouTube channel. He was playing Ringman. Whenever you won.
I think that was the game where he absolutely destroyed me with
you.
the... Yep. Yeah. It was the 12 damage Akuma flash attack. I was like... When you lose UFS in a ridiculous-ass way like that, you can't even really be mad. Because, like, at the end of the day, like, I'll be mad if I'm just, like, taken out by NPE garbage.
Yeah.
But, like, when I'm just hit with a 12... I'm sorry. 7 mid 15 attack on probably turn 1 or maybe turn 2,
Yeah.
and I die, like that's just like whipping your dick out and me going, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's where we are right now. Like Travis, I remember that match as just like an utter dumpstering, and that was me coming off of my Atlanta PTC one with this deck, being like, this deck is nuts. This is the best thing that I have. This deck is absolutely insane. And maybe even after Worlds where I Swiss champed, and I was like, man, my deck is insanely good. This is just the strongest thing I could ever do. And then just to get absolutely horribly dumpstered by a man playing Ring Man
Yeah.
with just the memeiest memes was just like, I deserve this. This should happen right
It's a
now.
little
And
humility.
Travis is the man to serve that to me. So
Rad.
I really appreciated that, because honestly, it was good hubris. It brought me back down and made me realize that like UFS can be ridiculous and fun sometimes.
Cool. I'm sure Travis brings that up, not all the time, but enough to let us know. enough to be like, right, but like, remember Ringman though?
That was a great deck. And I love Ring Man as a character. Any character that can meme like that, but not super consistently, is pretty cool.
So I know you don't have a ton of Libra of Souls experience, but quite a few of these questions are. And so I'm going to ask from Kaulik. I think that's how I pronounce it. He says, where do you see the meta going forward before/leading up to Worlds? This would be a super important meta and not a lot of data before Worlds. So opinions from World Champs are a good start.
I think like we're going to see the same sort of thing that we've seen in the past, where like characters dominate, and like how your character interacts with the rest of the meta is going to be incredibly strong. I think throw hate is going to be huge if throws end up being as bad as I think they're going to be, because the way that like Astroth, the way that Nightmare has played in the past and Astroth is going to play, like there is a lot like playing a 7-hander right now. I think you have to be able to cheat really bad.
Yeah.
And by cheat I mean just be incredibly strong. Xianghua, Tim Keefe, like Ken to an extent. Like you have to play that you like a normal bare bones 7-hander. I don't think does very well in the upcoming meta.
Yeah.
Just because I think that like the new Astroth 8 damage throw that's like sometimes just unblockable, and the old one that's like still 8 damage and gets you momentum, the Life Force thread. Like Nightmare is only getting better with that. Like I know we just lost Boulder, but at the end of the day, like Boulder made him a little inconsistent, and while it was really strong and super powerful when you got it off, like putting a more consistent Nightmare deck into play where you play a little bit more defense and you have like really consistent, here's going to be 10 and you're just going to take this, and here's another 10. Like you only have so much time. That's an ultimate Matt Turner deck where it's like you're on the clockiest clock and you have to figure this out before I just absolutely murder you.
Yeah, I think Boulder put Nightmare on the map of like people having to respect it just because of like what Boulder does, but it was Nightmare that did that. Like it was
Nightmare absolutely did that. Yeah, like if Nightmare wasn't as big as he was, Boulder wouldn't have been as big. Or if Nightmare wasn't as key to that deck as he was, then Boulder wouldn't have been as playable. And it wouldn't have. It obviously wouldn't have gotten errated because it was literally errated for Nightmare, which is a really weird way to errata a card. Just because like the character was the problem and you errated it so that the character would no longer work with it, but otherwise the card works just fine. So I just like. I don't necessarily like that method. I mean, that's getting into tiny details, but like, I think big throws are a real problem now. On top of that, I'm just trying to think of like characters out of the new set that seem really strong, and honestly, like some of them they seem pretty on par with a lot of stuff we've already seen. So we're gonna see who breaks out and becomes that top tier character. I watched your video about how you think Sungmin is going to be really good.
I do.
I never thought about her with Ice Dragon, and that is the card that I think makes her that good. If Ice Dragon didn't exist, I don't think that character would be that playable. And even then, like a 5-hander with very little defensive ability is still questionable, especially with 31 health.
And she gets to take and toss in off symbol stuff, so you can just toss in Krita Yuga.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
at the end of your turn, they've committed out, and you're like, I'll just add in this Swordfish 2 dot. All right, go ahead. You don't have one attack.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you've got to find the defense to play with her to make her really good. But if you can make it consistent, she's gonna be great. But yeah, I think there are. I feel like the throws in the game are going to get a little bit overwhelming, so we're going to see how the throw defense plays out with that, and if it's fine, and if the throw defense ends up being enough, like I feel like a lot of the good characters stay the same way. I think Tim Keefe, Zhenghua, Eternal Lose probably still the best seven handers in the game. Maybe Tat Cassandra on with that. I'm really interested in her.
Yeah,
I want to see how Valdo plays personally. I think that he's a really cool character with a lot of great design behind
I
him. I
agree.
don't know if he's competitive, but he definitely has interesting options. And I really want to see that character played a little bit more before I make a pass a judgment on him. I want to honestly try to build that character. He seems super cool.
You and
Trying
Slam
to think of
both.
what. Yeah, I mean, but like any character that can just add an attack to their hand for free return, even if your opponent gets to pick it, like that's
Yeah,
the thing. Attack quality is so high in this
yeah,
game
for sure.
now. You just get to put anything in your hand, like, and anything can be good. His ultra rare that like discards a card and then makes this attack a bajillion
Yeah,
damage.
on an off zone.
Just yeah, and then but like any of his other cards, there's one that's like you get to discard another card from their hand, and then this gets damage equal to the number of keywords of a card that they decided that was a weapon in your discard pile because you only played weapons. Because why would you play that card and not?
Yeah.
Like there's just a bunch of really cool stuff you can do with him. He's got to find enough ways to survive, and that's I think that's going to be seven handers like handicap going into
Uh,
going into a throw based meta. It's always going to be like, can I deal with all of the throws being thrown at me all the time? And when you've got two 8 damage throws in standard that both share the same symbol, like it's going to beget those kinds of matchups. And not to mention, like there are other throws on symbol. There is the Ivy one that like burns your opponent for one and gains you two. Like I think throw decks are going to come in vogue here in a little
mhm.
bit, and like especially even if they don't come in vogue, Piglet is still going to play that throw deck, so you're still going to have to be ready for it because he's going to top with that
Hell
nonsense.
yeah.
That Astaroth deck, man, woof. His first variant, I played it against my Kuwabara, and it was like the squeakiest squeaky 2-1 that I've ever squeaked out after like an hour and a half of playing. Like
Wow.
this was gonna be a my Kuwabara deck goes to time matchup, which does not happen often. So it was one of those things where it's like I think throws are going to be a thing, or at least Astroth's going to be a thing, and Nightmare is still going to be a thing. So, but in terms of the meta, it's going to be here's a really good character, and here's the best gimmick I could break with it, and that's just the way that Jasco's designing their sets, and I like it. I think it's good.
This next question is from Past the QXP, and it's gonna sound rude, but let me get through all of it. Okay. When do you feel he peaked? When do you feel you peaked? Not in skill
Mm.
level, but in when did you peak in like the game knowledge?
Definitely back in 2011. After winning my first character, I really took a step away from the game, and I mean, I printed my character that didn't end up being very good, and I still liked playing it, but I definitely stopped paying as much attention as I used to the game
Mm-hmm.
itself. I've always been really ADD, but like I could always focus on UFS back in the day, and I realized like I was focusing so much that it was actually hurting
Oh
me,
yeah,
and I in other ways, and I was just one of those things where it's like it's not worth doing that, but I still enjoy playing the game. So
okay,
definitely back in 2011 was like the time where I was the most on it for sure. And then ever since then, I mean, I think I've been a pretty. I still like my deck building skill, but I still find myself missing plays. Back in the day, dude, I would miss a play and I would be on that in my head for like 3 straight days, and it was unhealthy as hell. So it was one of those things where it's like I realized I needed to take a step away from that so that I could live more as a person and less as a computer because I'm not one.
for sure, for
And
sure.
yeah, and I definitely that was like my peak UFS time, and then after that, I think my peak Keenan time happened, and that's more important
Way
to
more
me,
important. Way more
and
important.
way more
Like for
important.
sure, for
Yeah,
sure. Everybody out there, stay healthy. These card games are cool,
stay
but
healthy.
like, you're
Yeah, and don't be a shithead while you play the game.
true, true, true. This is another question by Pass the QXP. What's the greatest set to be printed? What's the best set?
Bebop.
Bebop?
Bebop, hands down. Yeah, I love all the haters of Bebop. I eat that shit all the way up. Like, there are so many people, like Thomas Gordon still is mad that Bebop was printed. I'm just like, this was the best set ever. You came from a set, Street Fighter, which was just like boring, vanilla garbage. Like every single card is just toilet paper and stuff to be proxied
Mm-hmm.
over, into the most dynamic and interesting. And every card, every symbol got support. Every card was impactful. You open a pack and you're just like, I can slot all of this into my deck. And it's one of those things where it's like I appreciate that set on so many levels. From a power creep level, I mean, it gave so much action to so many symbols and
Mm-hmm.
decks. From a money level, you buy a box of that set and you've immediately made more money than like the box
Yeah,
was. You rip a coffee samba and a swordfish, or like any two ultra rares in that set were gonna net you enough to buy another
for
box
sure.
if you wanted to turn around and sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking just like the characters were so unique at the time. Like Twinkle Murdoch was this super specific character that created problems and got banned for a good reason, but like her design was such that they made a character that gives your opponent momentum really, really good. That's insane.
Yeah,
Never happened
for
before.
sure.
Even Asimov and
I
Katarina
was just
was
gonna say
like
that.
the considered the worst character in the set. Still nutso.
Yeah,
Faye is still one of my favorite pet decks that I keep going back to, because any character that can just get a bajillion momentum and toss a missile launcher at you can't be
for
bad.
sure.
Like they're like every single character was super playable. Every single ultra rare you wanted to open. Whenever you opened a pack, you're like, oh, I hit an ultra, and it's definitely good.
Yeah,
Like and like going from that to Mortal Kombat was such a disappointment for me, because like I
really.
opened so many boxes of Mortal Kombat and pulled nothing. I think we opened a case and maybe got a fatality. We didn't even get a Nutcracker out of our first case. So, like,
Wow.
I've never opened a good pack of Mortal Kombat in my life. I've traded
Wow.
for everything that I have for that, and I've got 10 fatalities.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
'Cause that's like
It's
the
yeah.
opposite for me. I'm 100.
Oh, that's
I'm
good.
100% a Mortal Kombat kid. I think everything in Mortal Kombat's so well designed.
I
There's the
my
outliers
problem.
of Quan Chi and Liu Kang, obviously, but like every character's
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat just seems so interesting.
I agree. When it comes to pulls, though, my problem was here's an asset, here's an asset, here's an asset cove. Here's an asset, here's an asset, here's an asset. Stage kill. Here's an asset, and here's the card where Cassie or Jackie's punching the
Air
ground.
ground
The action.
smash. Oh, they. Oh,
No, no.
test your might.
I didn't pull. I realized like 6 months after the set had come out, it was time for me to play Kuwabara, and I had two air ground smashes to my name, and we had bought eight
Oh
boxes.
no.
Eight.
Oh no.
8 boxes,
Wow.
Tam.
That's
I buy 8 boxes of Yu Yu Hakusho, and I have like 15 copies of
for
everything.
sure.
Like that was nuts.
Do you think that's
That was
just?
nuts, my
Do you think
friend.
that's a set size?
Yes, I do. I think that the game works better for the players on smaller sets. It makes it worse for the card retailers because people get more value out of their boxes in terms of trade value and stuff like that. But like the thing that I really like about this Soul Calibur set is when you crack the assets in the set, you're not upset
For
about that.
sure.
Like I think
Yeah.
the assets are really good, and this is like the first time ever that is where more than one asset has been consistently good over the course of a
In
set.
addition to that, like there's a bunch of asset hate as well. Like I think
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
also super important. I like.
Well, yeah. You introduce a really really strong mechanic, or shore up one that's existed.
Mhm.
You answer it immediately.
Correct.
That's the problem with Spirit Gun was like they released Spirit Gun and Toguro Brothers in the same set, and they didn't put anything in the set to accommodate
For
that.
sure.
And even in the Soul Calibur set, they only put like one or two cards that were okay against them at
Yeah.
best. So I mean, like especially early in the game when you don't have momentum for that one Cassie card or whatever. But like that, it's one of those things, and I think they're learning how to do that better. Where they're like, all right, here's a bunch of throws. Here's some throw hate. Here's a bunch of this. There's a bunch of here's the counter to that, and that's good for the game. And that shows you that Jasco cares. And they just didn't mean to print Spirit Gun as good as it
Yeah.
was. They didn't realize what kind of impact it was going to have on the meta because our play test is very limited. So, but they did the best with what they
For
had,
sure.
and they're making up for it, and that's what's important.
But I love the fact that they didn't like outright ban Spirit Gun. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people are like, oh, just play now. Everybody's gonna play Yusuke. We had what 2 Yusuke's at a 37-person event. That's fine.
yeah, it's fine, totally fine. Like, and there are decks that can play Forbidden Moonset and Guilt Seeker, and like that. It is what it is. Like you're gonna find a deck that does
Yeah.
that. It's just that being able to give like the best piece of Foundation Destruction to every single one of the top X amount of decks is crazy. But like that's the thing. Like the community spoke.
And
We did a poll.
they listened.
With the poll, the poll was pretty
Yeah.
shocking. Did not expect the kind of response we got from the poll that we got.
Yeah.
And then they reacted to it, and that's healthy. That means that the company cares and they're ready to respond to the problems. I forgot what question we started with.
It was what was the best set ever printed?
Yep, still Bebop.
Yeah, still
Mm-hmm.
Bebop.
Yeah.
Last two questions, and we've kind of covered this a little bit, but I just like to really nip it in the bud. Cyrus Talkelm says, ask him about his opinions on the direction of the game, such as with the newest sets and their power levels. You're a big fan of Bebop.
Yep.
You're a big fan of this upward track. Do you
Mm-hmm.
like where Libra of Souls is? Do you wish we would?
Yes.
Is it too high? Have we fluctuated back out? What are you thinking?
I think there's a danger when you come to attacks that do too much unblockable damage, a la throws,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, as long as they print answers to the things that they're making ridiculous, it's fine. I think what we're going to see a lot of emphasis on, and we're seeing a lot of emphasis on it right now, are bullets. So just like, here's one foundation that does a very, very specific answer to a specific mechanic that's ubiquitous throughout the game.
Yeah.
So the new Cassandra card that's just a put something speed to 0. I mean,
that card's nuts. Holy cow!
That card's insane.
I thought
Yeah.
that card said enhanced step. It says combat phase.
Yeah, it should say
It should say enhanced step. What?
But whatever. Yeah, like I don't know if you ever got to play with my foundation when it was in the game.
I did not. No.
Response before the block step reduces attack speed to 0.
That,
Playable while committed.
Are you the bakery poster girl? Are you?
I am the bakery poster girl. I also kind of made the safe keyword because it also said commit. This attack can't be played by reversals, and then like a set later safe came out.
No way.
You can't play reversals to this.
How
yeah,
is that
so
not on
I
your
mean,
achievement list? You made a keyword.
I didn't make the keyword. I just designed an ability. They're like, we should put this on more stuff. But yeah, so like bullets though, going back to that, like there's like a Tira card that produces attacks damage to 0 or discards from the card pool or something. There's Azurna Drossel, I think she's got, or maybe it's a different one.
I know her asset does. Her asset puts one momentum, and I want to say first enhance, put it to 0 if they have momentum.
Yeah. And so like that's the thing. When like old Legacy was so dangerous because those abilities were commits. So like there was a card that was like commit, gain X vitality, where X is the highest difficulty on an attack in your opponent's discard pile. Like
discard
I'll commit
pile.
this and gain 5.
Yeah. Gross.
It was a 1/4, Tam. 1 diff. So like the problem with Legacy that like the foundations were too strong and reusable.
Mm-hmm.
A good thing in this game is an effect that only happens once.
Yeah, for sure.
Ever.
For sure.
And then if you get another copy of it, you get another copy of it, but at least you only got to use it once. Dark Side of Karma is one of those cards where it's like, this card is incredibly strong, but at a cost. Yeah. It's a 3 diff that you have to slot in your deck. If you're playing 2 checks, you're playing 1 checks. Card's a little risky to play on turn 1, and then at the same time, like you can only use the effect once. And if they're playing weapon cards, you have to you get a much like a smaller selection of things you can respond to. And if they're playing cards like overly dramatic, they can cancel the E. So like, it's you put a bunch of these bullets in to combat all these attacks that are like, this is incredibly impactful when I drop this down. Like these common attacks are so strong now, and it's important to have that back and forth. And I think as long as control players and players who like to play 7-handers have those sorts of options, they feel like they can compete. And I think at the end of the day, the peak game is a meta where like 16 or so characters can all come to Worlds and say, I've got a shot. Yeah. And what is even more impressive with this latest Nationals run is how I was playing in a UFS draft pod, and I think like 3 or 4 of the characters that got into top 16 weren't even drafted.
Wow.
Byakko, Taki, there's at least 2 more of them, but like people were not playing these characters because no one thought that they were good. Yeah. And that's the thing, like a player who decided they liked this character and the character was good enough, just workshopped it enough and labbed it enough that they were like, you know what, let's bring this deck and see what happens. And suddenly they're top 16 going into they're top 4 going into top 2. Like, let's see if we can win. And then they get bopped by Jeddah because they don't draw any attack or foundations game 3, and that was really sad because I really wanted to see Colby take it. I wanted to see Taki in finals so bad. Imagine him setting into Shinnok against Gil. Like, your 5-hand
Whoa.
size character was cute, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very sad. But like, and the fact that there were 4 5-handers in top 8
Yeah.
never ever ever has happened before. Like, the game is getting better, and even with the problems that I think the metagame had and have since mostly been resolved. We'll see what happens with Tim now that Phil won that PTC. But like, other than that, it feels good to play, and I really like a level playing field where everybody, like, it's just who plays the best UFS, and sometimes it's always, there's always going to be the checks element, there's always going to be the I didn't draw attacks element, but like, at the end of the day, if you feel like you're playing good UFS, like, it's a good game, and I really like that. So I think the game is heading to a good spot. We'll see what happens with these throws. We'll see what happens if any of like the infinites or auto fatalities or whatever become too much or whatever. But
For sure.
the game needs to stay aggressive, and they need to give options to players who want to play a little bit of defense so that they can get their offense off. And then other than that, I think we're in a good spot.
All right. I think this pretty much does it for this podcast. How'd you feel? Did you enjoy this?
I feel good. I did. I
I
definitely did.
loved it.
Oh, okay.
I loved it. If you like the content, please go to patreon.com/TCG University. Support us out there,
Yeah.
and we can bring way more content like this to you in the future. Keenan, give me one person who maybe I don't know that I should have on this Champions Corner. If you could have one person that you want to see me interview, who would it be?
Well, obviously Ashley.
Okay, well that's not
but
fair. She's on the list. She's on the list. For me, a new player
they,
who
they,
doesn't
they
know.
have to have cardboard. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
It's
then you got to get Matt Turner up on
Matt
there.
Turner, Piglet Matt Turner. I'll get him on.
He's got two pieces of cardboard. They're absolutely ridiculous. And that man is an absolute monster when it comes to building decks. So
Perfect.
you will not be disappointed, I promise.
You got any shout outs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, shout outs to all the players that I shout out earlier. Shout outs to the rest of the Challenges play group up in down in Atlanta. We've got Tommy Bagwell. We've got Chris Escarziga, Thomas Raw. I wrote them down. Shout outs to Bo Tucker, my teammate for the last 3 years.
Yes.
We've had a really, really good run, and we may be moving on as teammates, but we will always be friends, and I will always love him, and we may team again in the future. Who knows? Shout outs to, I wrote down Christopher Bromley and Tim Friedley because we had some really, really fun games in the last 2 nationals. Chris Bromley was my favorite deck builder that I got to play his deck set at Nats.
Okay.
He built this Morgan deck that was like 20, or it was 33% character cards, which spoke to my old Ava deck pretty bad.
Whoa,
it was pretty excellent.
That's cool.
And it was yeah, and it was like a 2-card kill combo. Like, you drop a Let's Party, you pick up a Let's Party, and then you drop a Let's Party, and you pick. There were ways to discard it and stuff. It was nuts and fun to play as hell. So shout outs to that madman. Tim Friedlieb, I will always remember our game where we closed down the card hall and had to get moved to the bar next to Nationals. Other than that, I mean, there's a million players to shout out, and I wish I could shout out every single one of them, because honestly, shout outs to the community.
For sure.
Because you guys are great, and I absolutely love you guys, and you're the reason that I have cardboard. You're the reason that I keep coming back to play this game. You're the reason that I keep dumping money into this game every single time a new set comes out. You're the reason that I come on to do these podcasts. Like, you make up so much of the great things in my life that I really like. There is nothing I could say or do to give back to you guys, because I'm just not good at that sort of stuff. So I just have to say thank you.
You're doing it right now.
That's about it. Yeah.
You're doing it right now. Well, Keenan, that's the show. So for everybody here at TCGU and Keenan, stay learned.
Get learned?
Been learned. We'll see you guys. That was so good. I'm so happy that worked.
That was good.